Hello and welcome to the second part of my epic Mumak Warleader tutorial video series. It's a mammoth task painting a massive elephant, so I decided to split it up into 4 different parts. And it may seem unusual to spend a whole video on the base of a model, but it took me an hour and a half to paint the damn thing. So I thought I'd show you how I did it, whether you like it or not. Now, for the base, I started with, you guessed it, a base coat. Oh, right in the pun. Anyway, I started with the base coat of red gore, or Mecrite red. Yes, it's an odd choice, you may think, but my reasons are twofold. I wanted my base to actually utilise the gorgeous sculpt, but also stand out from other Pelennor Fields Mumaks. This is the Royal Warleader, it's Mahud rather than Harad generally, so I wanted to give off a burnt desert sort of vibe, so I started with that darkish red. Then I washed it all over with Nuln oil until, well, I'll hand over to past me to demonstrate. Oh no. Yeah, always leave your pots closed. Luckily, my painting table became a makeshift palette for a while. Using a mixture of red gore and bubonic brown, I gave the whole base a good dry brush. Don't worry about getting the details covered, because we'll return to them later. Look to their coming on the first light of the 5th day. Oh wait, kind of wrong part of the series. Then, using a pure bubonic brown, or Talansan if you're new paints, I give it a much more deserty look by dry brushing over the top of that red. I was thinking something like the Gobi Desert or Australian red sand when I thought of the scheme. Nice and kind of orangey. I think it makes the sandy scheme feel deeper and richer, like the mines of Moria. Fun fact, Alan and Michael Perry, who designed this base and most of the original Lord of the Rings range of miniatures for Games Workshop, actually cameoed in both the Lord of the Rings The Two Towers and in the Return of the King films. In the Return of the King they play Rohirrim, dead Rohirrim, which they themselves immortalised once again in miniature form in their own model, this one. So to start painting the mini versions of Alan and Michael, I start with Narlock green on the cloaks, and I also crack on with the saddle blanket, also known as the Numna. Who knew? I suppose it's short for Numna Nuts. I've ridden a horse and I tell you, it must be short for that. Then, using Shadow Grey, I started working on the orcs. I'll be honest, it's still only a base, so I haven't treated it with like a hero level paint job, but simple colours and washes will make it look pretty darn decent, especially when you're hiding it slightly by putting a big old elephant on top. So a few more block colours to finish off the base. First it's bolt gun metal on all the metal, of course. Don't forget the stirrups on the horses and the armour. Using a bit more bubonic brown, I painted one of the horses ready to highlight it up to a kind of sandy white. And with Adeptus Battle Grey, or Mechanicus Standard Grey, I paint another horse. Key to painting this son of a gun is to layer it all on as quick as you can and let the washes do the work later on. No point letting anything dry at this stage, just get stuck in. Another horse I paint in Doom Bull Brown before painting all of the weapon handles, backsides of the shields. I use a nice dark scorched brown for that. Then it's leather in Bestial Brown, or Mournfang Brown, which forms a pretty large part of the rest of it. I do the straps and saddles in this, as well as the armour on Michael and Alan. Then a few more minor details left, which I did in individual colours, like the sleeping bag on the back of the horse in red, shields in snot green or warpstone glow, and the faces of the Uruks in white. I'll come back to why later. Then, with washes, I cracked on. Athonian camera shade went all the green cloaks, which had dried by now. Then, with Griffin sepia, I washed the sandy horse and armour, and the other horses I did in Reichland flesh shade. I go back to the shafts of the spears, and any wood I painted in scorched brown, and give that a quick highlight of graveyard earth, though. The problem, of course, with such a detailed model of this scale was that I kept missing minor details. It's easy to do. I kept scouring across it to check I hadn't missed anything, and inevitably, when I came back over a part with a different colour, I saw that I'd missed a bit in the previous colour. So that's the way of things. But it's worth noting to not missing details on a model like this, because it's such a rewarding base once it's finished, so it's well worth finishing everything, but you just might have to have a load of open pots of paint at any one time. Just be careful you don't knock them down like I did. So I painted flags and shields in snot green. The leather on the orc shield, I missed that, so I highlighted that in Graveyard Earth. Then white on the Rohan shields to finish them off on the little logos. And then the skin gets Talon flesh, and the cloaks get a highlight of Deathworld Forest green, and a wash of flesh shade for that skin once your Talon flesh is dry. Oh, this is worth noting, I always paint the big rocks if you can. Really breaks at the base on bigger models. I actually always do this now on standard size bases, even if they're just troops. If you paint most things brown and then pick a couple of pebbles out in grey, it adds a little bit of depth and diversity to your bases. It makes them look really good, even if it's just plain sand. I do that here with the boulders to break up the majority of the red. So basically, now I'm just filling in the blanks at this point. Final highlights on the leather and the rocks, and I gave the blue Mordor Uruk a shade of purple, and then a few other touches, and we're done. I glued some army painted desert tufts on the base to further break up the earthy tones. Then I added some red ink as blood splatter. You can use the red blood of the blood god paint from GW. It's really good. I love that paint as well. But red ink will do fine. And that is that. One Mumak base. Now, all I have to do is paint the beast itself. Easy. Watch my next video to see how I do it, coming up soon. Thanks for watching.